In the previous lectures we discussed the family relations in the society, and we tried to agree on that fact that everything is not so clear. Different people are different by fact, and the same patterns cannot be managed to apply for all. That is why each person has to individually build both their personal practice and their life. That is, if one person lives and can develop depending on the internal qualities and external conditions, then for another person the same life will not be developmental because of the external qualities. That is, if he will not systematically make efforts, he will not develop. This can be compared as an example with the bacteria. A child is playing in a sandbox. If the sand is clean, then whatever he's doing, everything will be fine. If the same child will play in a place where there are a lot of bacteria, when he comes home and he won't be washed his hands, anything can happen. Is it clear? The conditions in which you live are different for all, and individually you should assume that, how to live and what to do with yourself, and should you do something. Let's consider a situation when you should do nothing. You live in a holy city where all are the saints. They live, say the right things, everything is okay. You live in this city, and why should you do anything? Everything is wonderful around. That is, someone maybe make efforts, but you'll find. But let's consider another situation. You live in a city where there are a few saints or even none at all. From the other side, there are quite a lot of people who motivate or model some negative qualities. These negative qualities as bacteria will stick to you. It's the reality. If you want to live like the society around, so just do nothing, and you'll blend in with the society that is under this society. There will be ideas of the society that surrounds you, and there will be you respectively. It will be the same. Why do I tell you this? If you are in this certain society, whether you like it or not, you will inherit the features of that society. If you live in a society that you are completely satisfied, which for you is almost heaven, then no problem. You should not do yoga, just live and enjoy. Perhaps you will come to something. It's all individually here. It is impossible to say that everyone needs to stand in order and move in some direction. There are people who, let it say, live in a clean place. They can start their life in the nature. They have quite a clean place around. They live more or less adequately, honestly, and in harmony with the nature. Then maybe they don't need to make such efforts in yoga, as, for example, the person who lives in the society and who goes every day to the office. And it is not always well there. Clear? Did you understand the main idea? So, it is often recommended to build your practice on your own, individually, as the means not just only for self-development. Let's look at this from contradiction. A man lives in the perfect society. Even if he can somehow develop himself, he decided that the society is ideal around him, but nevertheless he would make efforts to influence it. And he'll make efforts, it will be easy, and maybe he'll even change it for the better, though the society is in some way an ideal one. Let's consider another situation. A man lives in an unperfect society, where there are a lot of strange things, but he decides that he will make efforts and he will not degrade with the others, which are spread by the certain structures, beekeepers, for example, to degrade, and he begins to make efforts. How will this man influence on the reality of the surrounded environment?
Как вы думаете, какой результат произойдет, то есть как повлияет этот человек на окружающую реальность? Как вы думаете? Какие варианты?
The energy of this society will change slightly. Like any structure affects a man, and a man affects the structure, because everything is interconnected. This doesn't happen that a man lives in the house and the house degrades and only the man alone will develop. It will not happen. Or the whole house will develop or no one will develop. Who will win? It is true that if you will make efforts to yourself and you will try to change the reality around you, that is to say, to change the reality through yourself, through your energy, whether you like it or not, you will have a definite impact on the society. Who has noticed such situation? There was an average family that watched TV, had a holiday once a year, had joy and sorrow. Suddenly, someone was interested in the personal development in this family. The man started to make efforts. If this family can stand this person for 2-3 years, then the family will change. Who has such examples? The statistic states this. One person at least, one family may influence on it. It's a fact. There are a lot of examples when people first begin to deal with themselves. And the family is often against it. Any innovation in the family, especially if it is a child, are not accepted by the parents. It is perceived by the parents or the older generation as another whim or something weird. The first time it is a test, but if the child survives, then the parents will look and rethink. Better yoga than alcohol. And the person lives more relaxed. The experience shows that such families then begin to develop themselves together, thinking about how to live, why to live, what to eat, whether to buy meat products, and consequently, these families change, and the society around, whether you want it or not, will change too. If there is at least one family who will live more or less sober, it will influence on all its friends. This is interrelated. Now we are talking about that dealing with yourself is of great importance. If you do not have motivation about what is your aim, you think in such a way, I live with yoga, I want to have stretching. You will get it. And what next? I have got your stretching. Now you can give up yoga. Once you have more or less a global idea of what you are doing, you will understand that you are a part of the society on this planet. The more people that will evolve, the better society will be on this planet. You should understand this. Why don't you agree with that?
Чем больше будет частичек, которые будут эволюционировать и развиваться, тем будет общество на всей планете лучше. Все это понимают. Скажите, пожалуйста, кто из вас вот не согласен с этим? То есть, ну, может, кто-то скажет, что да нет, там, ну, у нас другой пример, и расскажет свой пример. Я буду рад услышать. Есть какие-то другие примеры? Неужели нет? Ну, не бывает. В природе такого не бывает. Точно есть, я уверен.
The truth is the one for everyone. I don't agree with you. One or two variants. Either you start to pull everyone like a locomotive, and the people begin to change, or they will press you.
Я с вами не соглашусь.
Ну, один из двух вариантов. Либо начинаешь тянуть, как паровоз, просто, ну, всех.
I have an example. A person begins to practice yoga, then go to the hospital, and the people around has decided that it is because of yoga, and they said that yoga isn't a good thing to do. Yoga made this to the person. It's okay, and what do you want? The Kali Yuga? It's absolutely normal. Those people who, as you say, saw something, got scared and accordingly did, with your point of view, such conclusions. This is 100% of their karma, so to say, those people who had made such conclusions. If this person has a little different, having a slightly different experience or energy, then once being in the hospital, he would have made another conclusion. It is absolutely normal. It cannot be that all will be okay. Or, as the young man said, that the truth is for everybody. It is not so. The truth is different. The truth, it is the truth for everybody. There was an accident, it's true, but the truth has many interpretations. Not everyone can withstand on the path of yoga. It happens that in the family people are trying to develop. A person understands that yoga and self-development means he understands that this is an important and a good way to go, but he feels that he has not enough strength. Knowing all this, he decides to live a normal life. He creates a family, comfortable enough, good conditions, and continues to live just as he had lived, knowing all about this information. Such examples exist, and it is okay. You must agree that even such family will differ from an average one, which goes down. It will gradually. Well, everybody can't go along the same path. They say something that I am okay. The man understands that not everything is okay, but nevertheless he says that he is satisfied. They are afraid of changes. It is also possible. It is called conservatism. When a person adheres to some even uncomfortable, unfortunate, problematic but well-established situations, let it be like this, but not worse. Usually the man who degrades says, I am okay. They just not say, they give a lot of arguments why they live very well. And you also should live the same way. It is okay. Why are we discussing all these things? In order that you understand that there will be never the situation in the society when the whole society or some group of people are equal to the same problem. It will always be different. If Ivanov would say that the truth is this one, Sidorov will have a different opinion due to the different energies. Although Sidorov may be partially agree with Ivanov, but he will argue for some number of reasons. That is why, if you come across this certain concept, you are satisfied. This doesn't mean that if you spread it and prove it to everybody, that you will be heard. Most likely you will not be heard. Most likely you will even have enemies who will convince you of absolutely opposite concepts. It is absolutely okay. If today you have come to this yoga workshop, we will discuss different methods and ways of self-improvement for various categories of people. Today we will discuss different castes and how one should or should not develop.
Тогда мы с вами разберем сегодня разные методики или разные способы, которые для разных категорий людей подходят. И вот то, что мы вчера с вами рассматривали разные касты, и сегодня пройдемся по этим кастам. Кому как можно заниматься или возможно.
A man by his karma in his previous life was given a lot of pleasure. He spent everything he could, wasting his energy, bubbling in the so-called pleasures as he could. He did himself well, so to say, take everything from life. This concept is widely spread among today's youth. In the next life, such a person is reincarnated quite badly because of the pleasure which appear in the inner world, limit the rise of energy up. This picture was drawn spontaneously, but this is an incredibly serious thing. If you can understand what is drawn here, you will easily understand the processes in the world. Please draw your attention to that fact that it is the picture of the man, his inner world, his channels that flow, chakra, the energy column is also drawn, which is in the area of Manipura. The chakras converge and becomes more subtle. The energy reaches only the Manipura chakra and then the channels narrow. Until the Manipura chakra, the channel can still be filled with energy. And due to the fact that the man regularly spends through Manipura chakra his energy, then he has an addiction, and he needs to regularly spend energy on that dependence to which he was accustomed. If he doesn't waste this energy regularly, he is sick. So to say, he suffers. Each of us has some preferences. If you will not satisfy your addiction regularly, what will happen to you? You will feel some discomfort, breaking, and you feel like as a cow to be regularly giving your energy to the consumer, who according consumes it from you. You understand that addiction is not a fairy tale. Most addictions that you have are the objective reality. This objective reality in which you live determines your future life. Why? If you look at the schematic example of the man at the level of Manipura chakra, there is some kind of addiction, sweetness, for example, which is implemented through this chakra. For example, the person has something. There are people who are happy that they have a car or something else. He comes to this thing, strokes it, and feels happy. For example, a girl has boots. She really likes them, or something that makes her feel delight. Because she has, but somebody doesn't have. This feeling that the person experiences having something, it's a waste of energy. Any sensation that you feel in a given situation is a waste of your energy. That is why there is a cake in the picture. It is a tool that allows you to understand the problem. In this case, there is a person who is addicted to sweets. There are a lot of such people because the sweetness is the legal drug that even kills the person. This is what gives the release of energy. When you put a sweet thing inside your body, you have the energy increase, for example, a bar of chocolate. But it is really the addiction, and those people who sell chocolates know it.
Прошел уже через этап, когда шоколадка это важно. Поднимите руки. А для кого еще шоколадка? Нет, ну хорошо. Для кого еще шоколадка это важно?
If you know that there are the most horrible drugs which kill slaves on this planet very quickly. Yes, they are drugs. Everybody suffers. Someone practically does it. There is some information in the internet. When the American beekeepers capture Afghanistan, the drug production has increased in several times. This is a documentary film where it is shown that during the 10 years Americans' presence in Afghanistan, the drugs has been produced for 100 years ahead, which now are in the warehouse.
За 10 лет пребывания американцев в Афганистане на складах уже заготовлено наркотиков на 100 лет вперед. То есть вот
Why? Because there is such a concept that humanity is like a cancer on this planet. And there are powerful people who believe that the more humanity will be reduced, the better. But there are drugs that someone destroys, but the beekeepers produce this stuff. Some anti-drug war, the drug control is shown trying to catch someone. There are some very fast methods when a man deprives himself of life, a drug or an alcohol, but in a smaller proportion it gives a certain number of experiences or sensations in 1 minute period. There is 1 gram of some sort of drug that the people take. Due to it, a person receives an experience that he will get the same feelings after drinking 100 grams of the alcohol, or to satisfy yourself with a bar of chocolate, he needs 2 kilos, for example.
Для того, чтобы алкоголем получить это переживание, уже нужно не 1 грамм, например, а 100 грамм, например. Чтобы там какими-то другими транквилизаторами, то есть какими-то искусственными средствами, которые человек вводит в себя, им нужно уже больше. То есть, чтобы, допустим, шоколадка из себя таким же образом...
That is why a person that quickly feels a large number of experiences for a short period of time dies quickly. That is why drugs kill people so quickly. Drugs are harmful. It is poison. It is that quickly deprives people of life. This is a very important thing. It should be understood because gradually we will come to yoga this way. There are 3 variants of the artificial means which take people's life energy. The same amount in grams will give the different number of experiences.
Искусственного средства, которое забирает жизненную энергию человека. Там первое, второе, например, и третье. Но та же самая...
If a man will use artificial drugs, tranquilizers, his life will burn out very quick. Another one a little slower, another one more slowly. As the normal people who live up to 60 years, then it will be time to retire and he will die. And everything is okay except the people who live in this cage. That is why chocolates do not kill people so quickly, but stimulate people to run like a horse down this road.
Поэтому шоколадки, они находятся, где-то вот здесь. То есть они не так быстро лишают человека жизни, но стимулируют его для чего? Для того, чтобы он как лошадка бежал дальше по этой, как это называется?
That is why chocolate and other sweets are the legal drugs that kill you. Have you noticed the people who work in the offices? They found when drank at received some doping and then went back to work. Why?
Наверняка вы замечали, сейчас секундочку, наверняка вы замечали, люди в офисе, которые сидят, вот если кто-то из вас в офисах работал, вы знаете, что в офисах есть клубы по интересам. Кто-то курят, ходят вместе, кто-то там шоколадки идет кушать. Но они вот сидят в офисе, работают, потом звонят: Маш, ну что, пойдем. Они с Машей попрыгали там куда-то.
Because most people live on the doping now, and it's legal, that's okay. Here's an example. There is a drink Coca-Cola or Pepsi-Cola, an energy drink, in the light form. Why is it so popular? Because it really stimulates the people to a burst of energy. The man drank the mixture and he had energy. He feels good at some way. Then they went even further. They started to produce the energy drinks with high caffeine content, sweeteners, flavors. There are a lot of examples when people overdrank these energy drinks and died.
Кофеина, таурина, подсластителей, ароматизаторов. И в конечном итоге много примеров, когда люди, перепивая эти энергетики, просто умирали. Кстати, недавно прочитал, оказывается, есть статья в интернет, где описывается, не знаю, насколько это верно-неверно, но, скорее всего, в этом что-то есть. Потому что я читал 2 разные точки зрения, но в этой статье конкретно описывается, что пепси-кола использовала в улучшителях вкуса, даже не знаю, как это сказать, продукты абортариев. То есть из детей нерожденных вытягивали определенные компоненты и добавляли в напиток, конечно, в очень маленьких дозах, но из-за этого качество вкуса получалось у этого напитка сильнее. И на Западе был большой скандал, и в конечном итоге начали выходить уже статьи, что якобы нет, там улучшители вкуса вытягиваются не из абортированных младенцев, а из каких-то там жуков там Южной Америки. Вытягивают, добавляют, вот очень вкус, так сказать, увеличивается. Не слышали такого, не читали? Слышали? Читал тоже, но очень такая любопытная тема. И, к сожалению, в этом определенный как бы смысл есть. Вы поднимали руку, хотели что добавить?
Я хотел спросить, любые сладости, то есть, или только вы имеете вредные, то есть мед, например, там, любые сухофрукты, там.
Мед тот же самый стимулятор, но, как вам сказать, откуда мед берется?
Не, ну ладно, финики какие-нибудь, там, сухофрукты, тоже.
Это тоже стимулятор. Ну, только он будет вот здесь находиться такой легкий стимулятор. Да.
Я вот у Нарушевича слушал, он говорит, что женская энергия подразумевает употребление сладкого в разумных, соответственно, пределах, но как бы для женской энергии употребление сладости считается нормальным, без перебора.
Только перебор. Где этот перебор? Где граница перебора? Вот кто из женщин сталкивался с тем, что сладкое на определенном этапе становится врагом? И они смотрят на себя в зеркало и думают: ужас, ужас. Ну сколько можно, это сладкое подальше. Поэтому это очень распространено. Многие женщины, они потом начинают длительную борьбу с этим сладким. Сначала подсаживаются вот по таким лекциям, как вы говорите. Сладкое можно, а потом, когда в штаны уже не вылазят, нельзя.
There is no cultural drinking. This is just a stimulus which makes the energy out of the person. The drink itself or the products that you use do not bear energy in themselves. They are just a catalyst for your life energy. That is why there is a waste of your life energy, and possibly for someone this is degradation. The good example is the people who are dependent on alcohol. The human changes the way of thinking, his behavior, manner, family, everything changes.
Вы видели таких людей, которые пьют уже, мягко говоря, не по-детски. У него меняется форма внешности, у него меняется мышление, манера поведения, у него все меняется. У него семья меняется мгновенно. Ну, если вот он конкретно уже алкоголик, семьи обычно быстро меняются, испаряются в смысле. У него происходит колоссальное количество изменений, казалось бы, из-за какого-то странного напитка. Но это факт. Еще какие-то вопросы были?
Я вот как-то или спрошу, или вот правильно я понимаю, человек рождается с определенным количеством энергии, правильно?
Да.
Когда он употребляет там или эту шоколадочку, или спиртное, или шоколадочку,
People have some dose of sweet, alcohol, etc. At first it causes some euphoria. Then you need more and more to increase the dose to get the same effect, because the dose used to stimulate him for something at some point stops working and the person needs to increase the dose. When the man has exhausted the supply of its energy, he dies. Many examples when people don't live up to 30 years. The kid's mortality rate from drugs is very large.
Быстренько исчерпал вот эту всю багаж своей энергии, которую получил, и там к 30 годам уже все умер.
Ну, это в лучшем случае к 30 годам. Много примеров, когда и до 30 не доживают, к сожалению. Ну, действительно, сейчас детская смертность от наркотиков, она, да не сейчас, мне знакомые рассказывали, там очень большая. То есть дети, к сожалению, попадают под раздачу. Но, тем не менее, почему так все долго мы это рассматриваем? Что есть определенные стимуляторы, которые вас пытаются развести на энергию. Я сниму этот свитер. Что-то жарко здесь.
Понимать, что им не шоколадочка дает энергию, а что они свою энергию забирают. Вот это вот люди должны...
Но если вы сможете этим людям это донести, то, соответственно, так... Это будет хорошо. Но с другой стороны, поймите, я это все...
Yoga is the same stimulant, but the effects of yoga are absolutely different. If an ordinary stimulant does not only take energy, but also brings many side effects, yoga has the minimal side effects. So if you will overdo with yoga, there will be no good of it. It's the same addiction.
то у йоги минимальное количество побочных эффектов. Поэтому, если вы будете перегибать палку с йогой, ничем хорошим.
On the other hand, if you won't do yoga, you will gradually degrade.
Никого не удивил, все спокойно.
If you work too hard, there also will be no good for you. There are examples. People disconnected from the society became so pure and sublime that the reality was too heavy for him.
Ничего хорошего вам не даст. Примеры тоже, к сожалению, есть, когда люди перегибали палку и, в принципе, ничем хорошим.
He moved away from the society and he received such a life with a bad end.
Он становился таким чистым и возвышенным, что окружающая реальность для него была слишком тяжелая.
If a man, being in society, only uses the resources of society for his life and gives nothing to the society,
которая, я просто знаю, ничем хорошим не закончится.
it can be compared with a selfish cell that is not cancerous, but still a tumor, because the society will work for this man. We live in the society, and there are people that cater to our interest now.
Почему? Потому что общество будет работать на этого человека. Вы живете в Москве, в квартире, ну, допустим, не в Москве, там, неважно, в каком-нибудь городе, но 100%. Есть люди, которые обслуживают ваши интересы сейчас. По крайней мере, в Москве это очень ярко видно, когда там вот все коммунальные службы, они являются представителями Средней Азии. Со Средней Азии приезжают и работают, соответственно, в Москве. Они сейчас обслуживают интересы у тех людей, которые живут там в этих квартирках. И я более чем уверен, жители Средней Азии, которые приехали в Москву, они, наверное, мечтают о московской квартирке. Они даже не знают, что какой-то кошмар и ужас.
The person will use goods of the companies or institutes or the tools of the society just to do yoga and have everything he wants. Well, there will be no good for him in this next life, because he should be born in the country in which he had served. It is the minimum.
В будущей жизни ничего хорошего не будет. То есть он будет вынужден родиться в той стране, которая его обслуживала минимум.
For example, nobody heard about yoga in Tajikistan. The same situation is observed in the countries of the former Soviet republics. We have made the research and found out how many people do yoga in different countries.
Азиатские страны — это такое широкое понятие. Бывшие советские республики, по-моему, это называется, да? Мы проводили с ребятами.
India is on the first place because there are more than 1 billion people. Then the Western countries come. Russia is far from the last place. We combine the Russia, the Belarusians, and the Ukrainians because we are the people with the same mentality. Among these people, there are many of those who do yoga, but not by form, but in fact. These people understand that yoga is spiritual development, the development of personal qualities of the man himself. Accordingly, making efforts to himself on this way, the man changes himself. And maybe something around him will be changed. There are a very small percentage of people doing yoga among the countries of the former Soviet republics.
Он меняется и сам, еще, возможно, что-то вокруг него изменится. Так вот, среди стран бывших советских республик очень маленький процент людей занимается йогой, очень маленький. В силу менталитета.
If you live selfish and yoga for you is only the proof of your selfishness, it is also a drug for you, and you will end not very well. The certain golden middle should be kept. You, the complete denial of the self-development systems, and you shouldn't move into the fanatical claims of the systems of self-development. It will be no good.
Каких-то систем саморазвития тоже ничем это хорошим не кончится. И в то же самое время нельзя скатываться для такого фанатичного.
Yoga also transforms your life energy in some way, but with the minimal consequences.
И я надеюсь, вы это услышали вот на этом примере. Почему? Потому что йога, она тоже до некоторой степени трансформирует вашу жизненную энергию.
You can say that social services work for us. But we pay them money. Let's look wider. All of us wear clothes, shoes, having not made in Russia, for example, in China, Vietnam, etc. So, there are countries that serve our interests. We live as consumers. Somebody works for us and we use these benefits. It's our reality. It is usually said, we also do something, we exchange it for money. But who can set the price of those kids' activity, who collects earphones or sew the shoes for us in factories? Why is working in the office or in your own business you get a different value? Why has the dollar course in some countries one ratio than in other countries?
Курс доллара имеет одно соотношение, в других другое. Какая-то страна плохо стала себя вести, собрались пчеловоды, сказали, все, опускаем валюту.
We all live in debt now. You should understand this. I say this is not in order to make you scared. The solution is only the one. To direct your debtors' life for the public welfare. This is the only way. It's actually so. There will be no good if you live experiencing your passions, pleasures, having a good family and live just inside it. We are the cell of the society. Believe me that from the point of view of the cosmic mind, it is not as great as it seems. Generally, everything that happens on our planet from the point of view of the cosmic mind is very strange. From the point of view of the cosmic mind, it is clear that what people do now will lead them to bad results. But such experiments are necessary for the people. They live this way. Why do I say this? Not to devalue your family. If you already have a family, you should make a cell of the society that will evolve and provide welfare to the world around.
Как это сказать, опустить. Нет, вы тогда из семьи, если у вас есть уже семья, вы из семьи должны сделать ячейку общества, которая будет эволюционировать и еще и благо оказывать окружающим.
I think that yoga raises greatly the person's energy. The man tries to raise his energy, and then he doesn't know where to put it. It becomes so much that he doesn't understand what to do with it. Such man should ask himself a question: why did I try so hard and raise my energy? That I increased it my slow so much so I can't manage it now. What was the base of your conclusions? Who told you that? Why did you start doing it? So I am trying to say today that you should raise your energy just enough to spend it for doing good. If you will only increase energy, you will not be able to do anything with it. I agree with you, really, but you should think first what you are doing. Now, unfortunately, if you try to find out what yoga is on the market, what will you encounter? Yoga is the healthy spine, and this is additional energy, euphoria. It is in trend.
Йога – это здоровый позвоночник, это там что, энергия дополнительная, это кайфно, это модно, это, как это называется...
Some people go to yoga to meet people. It is not so bad, but the people have the initial motivation which is very down to earth and selfish, why they want to do it. And that's okay. Most of those people who came because of selfish in yoga then gradually change it if the teacher is adequate. Unfortunately, adequate teachers are very few now. I remember the statement of the famous yoga teacher who teaches in the West. Once he arrived in Russia and said,
помню высказывание одного довольно известного йога, который много на Запад ездит.
Hope that those yoga corporations that exist in the United States will never come to Russia, because there is yoga which teaches spirituality in Russia, and it is almost not even in the West. More precisely, such yoga exists in the West, particularly in the USA, where people went deep into philosophizing, and there are those who take just energy from yoga. They wind energy up without talking about the law of karma or about reincarnation. It's all forbidden topics. Yoga is fun, yoga is drive, it is incredibly highly developed. The vast majority of the leading teachers in the West, particularly in the USA, give completely soulless yoga. One of my friends, the yoga teacher who said this, understands clearly yoga in fact. That is what yoga is, where it should lead, to what ideals, and he sees that is what is given in the West. Let's say a yoga journal organizes another conference. Can you imagine that something will be told about karma or reincarnation there? No, they will talk about styles of yoga, its directions. Just do yoga and joy will come to you. They sell only part of the truth and strongly promote it, and this is dangerous in some way. So, if you do yoga, you must have the aim why you do it. You should not be conducted by any trance. It is ideal if you practice yoga and your yoga is the system of change, both yourself and the society around for the better. Did any of you face with the situation when people began to practice yoga and the negative processes began to occur around? People started to steal, to kill, something else negative started to happen? Probably not. Most likely, vice versa. People begin to practice yoga and it becomes calmer around. Who has an example when you began to practice yoga and the situation became calmer? Raise your hands. It is really so. So what does this mean? Yoga as medicine is very good. It is important to monitor the dosage of this medication, not go far. If I hadn't said that yoga is a drug going too far, I would have just lied to you. I would have advertised that if you use the tool not properly, then this tool will bring you problems. Do you have any questions, additions, comments concerning this topic? I have a question concerning other methods of self-development. In your opinion, could there be other methods as a different drug, but with the same effect? Holotropic breathing, for example. Of course, the effect will be different, but of course this is needed. Holotropic breathing, Kundalini yoga, Krishna eats, Osho meditation, the Om Ru Club. All that is necessary. We all are needed. Why? Because there are different categories of people who need it. I, as a teacher, will tell you from a different point of view from which you never faced. Let's say a teacher comes into the gym. He has 3 practices a week. He regularly teaches. More or less the same audience comes to him. He knows that Ivanov, Petrov, Sidorov, the particular circle of people come, they will practice and everybody will go away with a certain experience, so to say. They will manage to change their energy and they will have some qualitative feeling. Even you, man, comes to practice yoga in this stable group of people who come to help each other to maintain the energy level, so to say, with another kind of energy, then there will be no effect for everybody. Only because of this man, and this is the hard reality. One man comes who doesn't fit into this group, no one will get any result. Tell me, have you noticed when a man with a different energy appears in the group? Raise your hands. Basically, the teachers know this. It is like our Father. How one person influences on the whole atmosphere. Indeed, people come who are on a different stage of development. No matter what you say to him, not to motivate to development, he is still not capable. And if he comes to you, you will have problems, and even your group might just fall apart because of one man. Don't get him out. He also feels no good to come to your group where some of non-adequate people practice some kind of yoga. He will look at you like some kind of adequate people. For such people must be other systems of self-development, and you'll be fine. Perhaps it sounds cynical, but it is a vital necessity. So there must be other categories of self-development where people who can't practice with you have another place to go, and they will be happy there. Moreover, if you try to force a man into yoga, you won't do this. If the man is of another level, whatever you do, he will say that he doesn't need this yoga. Let them do something else. When you were going to the cultural center Aura, you drove along some certain numbers of temples, where some people, old ladies, come, which are very good and kind. They put candles there, read psalms. It is also a method of self-development for them, because it is also an austerity. They come, suffer while standing. It is a system of self-development for those people who are at this level. Imagine that you came there and invite the people and told them to practice yoga in order to give them more effect than they can receive from their psalms reading. What do you think they tell you? You won't be understood, most likely. Did you understand what would happen? But there are other incidents. I was recently told that in one club located near Moscow, a large sports complex, one man successfully teaches yoga. A lot of people started to come to him. They have a huge gym, and more people started to come to him. The local diocese reacted on this because the huge temple was built next to the sports center. A priest in the cassock with a cross came to this club and said the atheist everything he thought about them. Yogis would never come to him. No. For different people, there should be different systems of self-development. For someone, it can be holotropic breathing, for another, Krishna songs. These are also the steps of evolution one needs to go through. As long as the person is not aware of certain things, you cannot force him to understand it. You can make him to do something for some time, but it will be futile. He will not practice. Now let us discuss the categories of people, how they can or can't do yoga, and consequently what to do. If you can relate yourself to any of these categories respectively, we will pass accordingly to your intentions. What would you do with yourself so that you have adequate development? Suppose you are a Shudra and you realize that you have a number of passions that control you much more than you can bear. Such people go into yoga for practical interest. If, for example, the man sits on drugs, yoga as a remedy will be very good, and the real tool is Kundalini yoga. And they do not hide this fact. It is a well-known topic. Kundalini teachers can really help people to replace the effect that they get from drugs through less means. We sit and wave our hands, jump, do some other things, but nevertheless, they may give to the man who was addicted an alternative experiences in order that this man live more or less sensible. There are a lot of such examples. This is absolutely normal and adequate. If the person is as dependent at this level, most likely he won't stay the spiritual yoga for the long time. If only he will move some number of steps, trying out different things and finally focus on that what will correspond to his level. Shudras were prohibited to do yoga in the ancient times. It was forbidden to practice yoga not only in the ancient times. Now, if you try to get to the yagi in India, you, as a white man, would theoretically get it if you pay money. For example, some Brahmins gathered. They invite white people together. It's a difficult topic, but if I don't tell you, you will not understand. Imagine that there are a number of ashrams. There are quite a lot in India. For example, there are 5 ashrams in the street. No matter what religions they belong to, but they still will have some competitors. In order to show the importance of this ashram, it is believed that if you have the Europeans, so you are cool. There is a sense of superiority of one over the other. That is why white people are invited, but of course, they should pay money, so the pragmatism is incredible. A bit later, we will watch the film Oh My God. The denominations are shown and how they try to survive in India. It is very curious to know this. If a European will be allowed to yagya, yagya is an offering when, through the fire, they make offerings to the gods. The man from the street will not be allowed there. No way. If you come, for example, and you are a Vaishya, you wouldn't be allowed. Should go working in the field. He won't be allowed. It is the reality today. In India, many ashrams have such situation. I myself was a witness of such things. I even don't speak about Shudras. Shudra must not even come close to such places. I had one sobering experience in one ashram. We lived in a mountain ashram with the guys and were practicing yoga. Due to the fact that we were mostly teachers, we came out in the morning. There was a good ground where we regularly did asanas. For a Hindu people, a man who does yoga and can afford to do yoga is considered very cool. They know that their childhood. They understand it very well. Why? A Hindu man lives in India, he works hard, makes a lot of efforts, he knows from the childhood what karma and reincarnation mean. Suddenly, there is an inhabitant of heaven who lives in Europe and lives well, and even can come to India spending $1,000 on the plane ticket at least, is considered as a man from another planet. A Hindu man should work many years in order to get the money that people spend on the plane, if not decades, in order to live adequately, even have some savings. It is practically impossible. They literally survive there. So there was one architect there who had built this ashram. He was a very good architect and painter, and he tried to build a friendly relations with us. There was only one problem in the mountains. There were no cows. He made so that we were brought a cup of milk after practicing.
В горах была одна проблема, то, что там, нет коров.
A boy took this milk especially to bring it to yogis. It was okay with me. Once I called the architect, knowing what this boy might be overcome in order to deliver milk to yogis at 8 a.m. I thanked him and invited to practice yoga with us, with the help of the architect, because the boy couldn't speak or could speak only in Hindi.
Я зову этого архитектора, когда этот мальчик в очередной раз приехал, привез молоко. Я прекрасно понимаю, что этому мальчику приходится преодолеть для того, чтобы в 8 часов утра привезти это молоко к нам вот под дверь поставить. И я через архитектора перевожу, потому что мальчик там вообще не врубается ни во что. Он только на химии.
And I looked at the reaction of the architect. The architect was shocked. He said, yoga, impossible. I asked him why. He works so hard. The architect answered, "He is Shudra." This word Shudra was told with such vibration as it was worse than a beast. "He is a Shudra. Don't you understand?" I looked at this architect and asked, "What's the problem?" "Well, he's a Shudra, and what now?" And he said, "Impossible." And they didn't allow this kid. Impossible? In what conditions these people live? They dress more or less well because the Europeans come to the ashram. Do you know such metal as aluminium in the shape of a sheet? The city is made of these sheets and sticks driven into the ground, sticking out around. They live there. It is a flat for them. The flat is near another flat. It was such settlement in the river valley, and they all live there. Women with men work, if they can find some work, often very hard. Since they lived near the ashram, women and men, just like donkeys, were hauling rocks. A car brought the rocks and they took these rocks. They had a bandage on the head. No matter who you are, a woman or a young girl, they just took these heavy stones and dragged to this construction. That is why this architect could not even imagine this kid to practice yoga. It is the reality. Therefore, if a person was born as a Shudra, he was forbidden to practice yoga in the past. For me, it was a real shock because I had no idea that it is still such a division of classes in India. This caste system is terrible. The more I lived there, the more I was assured that it was really very hard. But the most interesting was to watch the so-called Brahmins. How do the Brahmins address to the people around? I don't even want to tell you, because I have to tell you the seamy side. What I saw, I will say it this way: there is nothing better for yoga than Russia. If you were born in Russia, consider yourself a very lucky man. If you had been in India, you would have been there in such ideological wise. Step right, step left, the fiery hygiene. So, if you have an opportunity to live and grow in Russia, it is perfect. Some says, I will go to India, to Rishikesh to study yoga. If you want to live and teach yoga in Russia, study only in Russia. India will never teach you what you can be taught in Russia. It's a fact, because in India you, unfortunately, will be taught. You know, there are ashrams that are made only for Europeans. There you will sell your health. You will be said, treat people, try it. Why do I say so? Because to cure a man with the help of yoga is practically impossible. If you do not eliminate the cause of the problem, it will come back again. It is not the right way. They sell the healthy spine, so to say, health and some bigots things when a man becomes just a religious fanatic. It is also a little used for Russia. You won't be understood here, to put it mildly. Not, you will be understood, but in a certain subcultures, no more. For society, you will not again do anything. It will be you, the society, and you will have separation, and nothing will be good in the future life. I began to study and learn why Shudras are forbidden to practice yoga. If a man lived like an adequate person in his past, what another word can be used for a person who is short-sighted? Stupid, foolish, ignorant. A man lived in a hassle, and he accordingly spent a lot of energy. He has left addictions of those chakras which he formed in his past life, because the chakra is a means of transferring information. That is why man is born and he has some innate habits. People are born, and since childhood he likes something very much and something he doesn't like at all. Where does the child have such qualities? This is the explanation. It was his last quality which he dragged from his past life. A Shudra brings in his next life only pleasure, lust, idleness, ignorance. The Brahmans have accumulated a big of experience when many thousands of times, millions of times, they tried to give yoga to Shudra. The result was always the same. The more a Shudra accumulates the energy, the faster he burns it. They, Brahmans, have realized that it's pointless. This is the same with a dependent man. No matter how much you gave him alcohol, it will only get worse. The same thing with yoga for Shudras. When a man begins to practice yoga, he gets the energy, but later he can't control this energy. That is why they were treated in such a way. Now it is at the level of disgust. Being a Shudra means even worse than being a dog. If the dog can be petted, then a Shudra will be immediately expelled. They were forbidden to do yoga, so they wouldn't hurt themselves. According to this part, do you have any questions, additions, comments? Is it so dramatic for you? Why can't anything be changed to them? It can be changed, but only through labor. They are given labor, the opportunity to work. Heavy physical labor. It is believed that if a Shudra works from life to life and earns the gratitude of Brahmans, he will gradually evolve. Is it clear? That's what the same I had told about the Asian republics. Now they work for you just because in their past lives they lived in their apartments as the inhabitants of heaven, as you, and they were worked for by somebody. They have accumulated such a potential. Now they are forced to be born there, to come here and to work here. The same treatment with Shudras is in India. If you were born in such circumstances, when you live in a cardboard house, so it is the lack of tapas, the complete lack of it. The man was born almost as a zero. Having little more tapas, he would have been born and even been educated. Education costs 100 rupees per month in India. It is 50 rubles. If you want your child to go to school, you have to pay 50 rubles and your child will be educated during 1 month. Medicine is very communistic, democratic in India. I don't think that it exists in other countries. If you come to the hospital and say that you are sick, you will be offered 3 types of treatment: homeopathic, Ayurvedic, or classic Western treatment. For example, you choose the Western medical treatment. You are given a number and you pay 5 rupees, 3 rubles. You pay money for being made an appointment, who you are and which doctor you were sent. You go to the doctor, he will examine you and then give you a prescription, and you, with this prescription, go into the next room, pharmacy, and you are given medication free of charge, and finally you go to treat yourself. It is really free medical care, except for the 5 rupees that you paid for being made an appointment. Having a choice of 3 types of treatment. All this is all done not because of the good life, because India is a little different. In other words, there are bacteria that you can't even imagine. If the local population is not treated, the big epidemics may start. In India, they try to do so that Shudras survive, but if a child was born in such conditions that he just literally survives, it speaks of his karma. But Brahmins understand this clearly. So, there is no question of any injustice. It's the certain realities of the society in which a man can place himself. Because he believed in his past lives or in the concept of take everything from life, spend it all. An alcoholic who drinks himself to death and dies may be born not very presentable. The Brahmins will say, if you can't control your addictions, your chakras record all your preferences and you will take these habits in the future. Therefore, the faster you will understand your habits, the more chances that you will be born most adequately in the future life.
Помните, вот я про чакры третий раз уже пытаюсь вам объяснить, потому что ваши чакры записывают ваши пристрастия. И вы эти привычки перенесете в будущее.
And what about Western people? How do they cope with these bacteria coming to India? By no means. There is city Varanasi. There are hotels having been built in that way that they are connected with each other, so to say one hotel leads to the next hotel and so on, almost one solid monolith, and of course, as it is always hot there, they have one ventilation system. Thus, if you are in the bathroom or in the closet, you can't hear what's happening through 2-3 rooms, as the sound spreads through the ventilation system.
В третью, то есть такой, знаете, сплошной монолит, практически тут на берегу Ганги. И, естественно, так как там жарко всегда, у них система вентиляции...
In Varanasi, I heard 2 times how people cry in the bathroom. Just sit and cry. This is the way they meet the local bacteria, because they walk down the street and they are offered to drink, eat, and they try this.
Как люди в туалете кричат. Они просто сидят и кричат. Это вот они так знакомятся с местными бактериями.
Really, you can't even imagine how then people feel bad. You go to the toilet, you hear a man's cries, and no one will help him. Not because cure is not possible, but because while all of these bacteria do not come out, nothing can be done. It is very serious and severe there. So, when we come to India and our trip is India, Nepal, we say a lot of times not to eat in streets. Never, or not at any price. There are a lot of goodies there, but probably it will be no good for you. If a person comes for a period of more than a month, usually after 2 weeks of acclimatization, he feels better and he will be sick and have problems with the stomach too. Wherever you live, whatever you eat, but the bacteria that you bring accustomed to the food. Indian food causes an upset stomach in 2 weeks. The man will sick, but then he gets used to it and all will be okay. But what about the movement quite progressive in India for the abolition of caste?
В общем, друзья, по поводу шудр. Да.
I think no matter in what conditions you were born, the important thing is what qualities you have. A person can be born a Shudra but be a highly spiritual man. Caste in itself is already a relic of the past. It is impossible to look at a man only because of his family. In India, the caste system still exists. You should look at the qualities of the man. He can be born in a Brahman family, but he may be the worst Shudra. He can boast, but the quality of this person can be absolutely terrifying. I read that now Shudra already practice in ashrams, but it is not welcomed. You know, in Russia, they have gay parades, for example, or try to do something. I mean that there is a trend, but it doesn't mean that society will accept this. The ruling caste never agrees with it. Even if it would spread to the ruling caste, the stratum of people who are without rights is practically very advantageous. The worldwide of the ruling class must be changed. They are parasite. No parasite will give it up willingly. That is, we need another revolution. When Mahatma Gandhi embody it and accordingly make something that will change for the better. There are a lot of problems in India, but in Russia they are also, they just different.
И, в общем, что-то там изменится в лучшую сторону, надеюсь. В Индии очень много проблем, но в России их не меньше, просто они другие.
Vaishya are craftsmen, businessmen. They are different from Shudras because in their past lives they were less dependent on the passions and didn't lose their energy.
Ремесленники-бизнесмены отличаются от шудр тем, что в прошлых жизнях они меньше были зависимы от страстей и меньше дали...
The Vaishya has much more of tapas. They are born in more adequate conditions and can afford to get education. That is more or less all right.
У Вайшу уже гораздо больше тапаса.
Most of you were born as a Vaishya because most of you were born in the Soviet Union or on the ruins of the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union tried to develop equality, but you know what it led to. Equality by itself doesn't also produce quite positive results, which the society can also destroy. Vaishya has more tapas, less passions. You can talk with them about reasonable things. They can deal with them and evolve. The overwhelming majority of people with whom you face now will be Vaishya. They are people who are trying to earn their own living working hard. They do not live due to the dividends. They have to make the effort because even in our Russian society, the people who live at the expense of some dividends, you will not communicate with them. They have closed clubs. They communicate more often in the south of France, especially in the summer. So this is a separate category of people. Most of the people around you are craftsmen and businessmen, which are very good to live and to grow. Yes, they have some addictions, but they are minimal comparing with Shudras. Yes, they have dependencies, but these dependencies, looking to compare with the Vaishya, accordingly, if you will communicate with such people, what you and the society will be good. It is very simple with Vaishya. They can practice yoga. They have reserves. They can spend their free time to do yoga. There are some periods when a man had a family. Children were born, and sometimes they can't do yoga, especially if it is a mother. Diapers, undershirts, school, lessons, institutes, sessions, and parents will be loaded. If you have such conditions and you have relatives who can help you with children, for example, the grandmother who sits with the child, then you are more likely to do yoga. Ordinary family's life takes a lot of energy. I mean modern democratic people who live without parents. Accordingly, it is a very good group of people, thanks to which you can live in this society. Vaishya would do anything for you. You should be somewhat grateful them for that. Which category does creative people and the artists belong? The creative intellectuals are divided into two parts. It is either completely dependent people who are in the passions and literary bubble, or really highly minded people who create, so it is useless to tell about all of them. They have some potential. We will speak about them. This can be said about Brahmans. The creative intellectuals are adequate in a small percentage. I always give an example. The man I don't know, but I see his creative work, that is, I judge by his deeds. There is an architect Tseretelli. His house is close to the club Ровесник, Moscow, Большая Грузинская Street. Go there, just have a look. His productivity is so high that the statues he sculptures are nowhere to put, so he puts them in the streets. When you go to his house, you will see that he's got the real boulevard lined with statues, and statues, well, it's okay when they are little, but he had them about 3 feet high, made from cast iron, and it is nicely done. Can you imagine what amount of effort and energy did he put into this statue? What does this mean? This is not a Vaishya. This is the man who simply creates. No matter good or bad, someone likes it, someone don't, but the productivity of this man is above average. What does this mean? That he has a little addiction, he puts all his energy into creativity. If the person has some addictions and dependencies, he can't create. The exception is creative intellectuals who sit strongly on the passions, and without addictions they can do nothing. It would seem like a contradiction, but in fact it is really so. So it turns out that some people of the creative intellectuals are very advanced, and some part of them have very down-to-earth passion. Let's come back to Shudras. I told you about the passion of the Indian worldview, that Shudras are forbidden to practice yoga there. In our society, even if you have a dependent person around, however, if he will adequately do yoga, even with the qualities of Shudra, he develop. So, if you are a yoga teacher, it will be very difficult for Shudra to do yoga in the group, but nevertheless, you can help him to make a special program to do independently. This program should be aimed at reducing the passions of his body. If he reduces his passions, he theoretically have energy and save it and can slowly evolve. It is easier with Vaishya. If you do belong to Vaishya, and you have no opportunity to practice yoga in a group, so practice on your own. Who does not let you to get up half an hour earlier and practice yoga? It is possible. Why? Because practicing half an hour yoga will give you so much energy that you will be able to spend it during the day, because yoga in the morning is an additional source of energy. Please tell me which one of you does yoga in the morning and can confirm that yoga in the morning gives more energy. Raise your hands. You see very much. If you don't practice yoga in the morning, I recommend you to follow the example of those people, that really practicing half an hour in the morning, you will receive an additional amount of energy, and more than adequate. Your day will be more or less filled. It is important. If a person belonging to the category of Vaishya can practice yoga on his own, it is very good. Or if he can practice in the group, it is also very good. Why? Because a man needs to visit regularly and communicate with those who are in evolutionary terms at least a step further than he, even the same Vaishya, but who has a little more experience in this world. It's very hard for Vaishya to stay alone on this way of self-development. He has a lot of responsibilities and passions, and if he will be alone, he will not stand. Therefore, there must be a certain circle of people around him who will support him in difficult situations. That is, Vaishya is needed in support of another people. Accordingly, if you belong to the category of Vaishya, you will need to find a group or circle of people or community with whom you will regularly build a relationship, and when you will have hard times, and you will sometimes have some difficulties, so your friends will be able to help you.
И когда вам будет очень тяжело, вам периодически будет обязательно тяжело, то вам ваши друзья, знакомые смогут в той или иной форме помочь. Вот поэтому какие-то вопросы...
Andrei, I disagree. Okay, let's discuss. Sometimes friends only cramp. Indeed, the man needs to move and move on his way, to evolve, to change something within himself. First and foremost, to change the society around, and his friends just regularly say the same thing and remind him that what this man did yesterday, what he does every day, and what he does every time. And for the person to change, he needs to overcome it all, but while next to him there are these people, he can't. It's almost impossible. I understand what you mean, but we usually use the term friends a little bit different. I was talking about other friends. I was talking about friends, not those that you had when you led fast life. I was talking about those friends who are in the process of self-development together with you. That is like-minded people who approximately the same as you do. So to say, self-development. Did you say correctly? Who are a step higher than you? They should be on one step below. Then it will develop. Then it will be degradation. No, not degradation. If there are people around you that you can help, it is not degradation. On the contrary, this is an additional responsibility. It will be hard to communicate with people who is not aware of something, who are dull.
Дополнительная ответственность. Вам будет тяжело, естественно, общаться с человеком, который как бы в чем-то не втыкается, извините за выражение,
Not just to communicate with those who are trying to climb. They make a lot of mistakes, and when it is the same, many times hands down. But nevertheless, if you can endure and to build relationships with those who are trying to climb, you grow. This is already your examination. You should overcome it. It is much easier to go a person away, but it is much harder to bear him and try to build some kind of relationship with him. Therefore, it is recommended, if you already understood something in yoga, become a teacher. Yes, you will be visited by those who will bring you some small problems, but with them overcoming their problems on the energy level, for example, you will evolve because it is the law of karma. Why do men come to you and cause problems for you? Because it is your reflection. There is a teacher and there is a student who, to put it mildly, is not adequate. Why did the student come to this teacher? Because this is teacher's karma. And if he doesn't pass this test, then the teacher will not be able to evolve to the next step. Nothing had come, all the hardship that come is only for evolution. If the teacher's life will be sweet as a cotton wool, he will not develop. So then, perhaps, there will be degradation. Because when everything is well, development doesn't happen. If everything around you is good, it's very dangerous. This is probably a symptom of the most dramatic events that will soon come. Well, we feel really bad. Well, what is bad for you? You are sitting in the warm room, you are not under the rain. What is bad? Yes, I agree, there is no sun, but it is very good. Battery works, it's warm there. How can the teacher know what kind of a person is in front of him? Usually, if you are Shudra, you know about your addiction. If you are an adequate teacher, you also learn about the addiction of this person while talking with him. His vocabulary, as he says, how he says his mind. Dependent people are very briefly. That is, they cannot speak long sentences. This is so indeed, that is, the dependent person speaks primitively. Accordingly, you can even watch it by his appearance. You can watch it. I am not talking about subtle things. If you are more or less understood your inner world, your chakras will respond to the person. If you have a man with addiction, you will even know what chakra is dependent. You will have the vibration of the chakras at this level. So, depending on how much you want to deal with the problems of that person, you should build some program, but not in the group. It will be very, very difficult for him. If you decide to gather all the people addicted to try to practice yoga with them, that is teaching yoga for dependent, this is the worst option. You will become addicted for sure. The teacher is also drawn to the energies that he brought into the gym, because the teacher is the object of concentration. Imagine that there are about 20 people in the room, and everyone has their own problem. They are grouped, and accordingly it results to the teacher. If the teacher has already passed this exam, it's not a problem. He may be ill a bit, having coughing for some time, and then it will pass. If the person is not ready to teach yet, he will realize the passion and addiction that were brought to him into the gym. I tell this story about one teacher from time to time, who wrote me the message that he says that he went to sleep without bothering anyone, everything was okay, he read the mantra, but suddenly he opened his eyes sitting in the kitchen eating sausage. It's a reality, it's not a joke. You said that if a person has good karma, then nothing bad happens. If a yogi is well and good, stable, wonderful, then it's not good. If a person has good karma, then it's all good. It is difficult to understand. Do you know the proverb, one man's trash is another man's treasure? So, what is happiness for a man, it's not joy for a yogi. Is being a yogi also karma? In some ways, because an ordinary man seeks warm, wonderful and good conditions. The man considers this as happiness. And a yogi do not need this. He needs evolution, and to evolve in a warm environment is not possible. Have you ever seen an example of someone who is happy and even develops evolutionary, very rare? Or another example, the person lives the whole life, satisfies desires, goes over the heads of his spiritual development, takes place. This, in my opinion, is not possible. I never met such examples. Usually people who live as consumers leave behind many problems around mountains of garbage, excrement and all that stuff. But yogis try to look at these things a little different. Therefore, if you live like a normal person and accumulate as Vaishya happiness, trying to be happy and healthy, so you do not understand yoga, because you do asanas on the mat and it is not fun. Why should Vaishya, who seeks for pleasure, squirm on the mat? The first time nothing happens, what should be motivation for Vaishya to torture himself on this rug for the first year, for example? Yes, then it will be okay, but the first year is basically very hard. For whom was it easy? Most people wheeze and sweat. It means that the person understands that to achieve particular result or objective, you need to go through certain austerity. Clarify, please. So, do you mean that austerity should not be all okay? We understand that when all is not well, it's some kind of disaster. Children, sick, relatives, and austerity can be replaced that all is not well. Yes, but on the other hand, some distress to some extent is also austerity. Let's look at this a bit seriously. Beekeepers came and fought another default, or a war, or anything else. This is your karma. Somewhere you were so narrow-minded man who caused problems to the others. Have the courage to relive it all now. Nothing can come to you for no reason.
К вам ничего не может прийти просто так. Вот, допустим, сейчас на Украине идет война. Почему? Потому что у этих людей, которые родились именно в этом... Я вам сейчас объясню, как это все происходит. Когда...
It was Russia 100 years ago. 1915.
Ладно, давайте не про Украину, это очень больная тема для многих. Была Россия.
The Russian Empire, there was a category of people who wanted to change the situation because of the money that came from Germany banks or any other reason. This is the second time. All those people who were born in the Russian Empire in that period has a certain karma to get into this certain revolution. It was meant to be. When they were born on this planet in this period, they had a karmic need to experience this home nightmare that they had endured. It is the reality that should be just. So the beekeepers who have come here, they came to these people to take their karma. No, now it's beekeepers' karma, and the most curious thing that beekeepers deny the law of karma. They say that it doesn't exist. So this is all about. In fact, as the old scripture says, all dramatic mistake that can prevent a living being is denial of the law of karma. This is the worst. People who got into some kind of conflict, a child is ill, are independent. That is, there is a family and the family, for example, has a child who dies for some reason. This was family's karma, that this child will come to them who is destined to die. So it all realized this is not some natural disaster austerity. What should be, that will happen, and there is nothing for any reason in this world. Two large layers of karma will be broken. The world should develop as it needs to be developed. In this case, I am talking about austerity when you are on the mat at the level of Vaishya, because Vaishya tends to their ideology, developing to sweet and comfortable conditions. Hugging is fine, but yoga on the mat is not pleasant. It is the worldwide of an average person. He says, I am tired in the office already. And here's the yoga mat is a problem. For Vaishya, the mat is a very strong austerity. A big motivation, a big reason should be, so he does yoga. Most of Vaishya does yoga in order to move, or some way to evolve. They understand that they have flaws, they have problems, for example, health. The vast majority of Vaishya starts to practice yoga because of health. Very few people continue to think deeper and develop.
У меня есть там какие-то проблемы со здоровьем, например. Подавляющее большинство вайшу начинают заниматься йогой из-за здоровья. Подавляющее. Там крайне кто дальше думает, больше смыслит и, так сказать, эволюционирует.
You say the beekeepers. What caste do they belong? In the economic terms and in yoga terms?
Может, кто-то не согласен?
Можно вопрос? Да. Пчеловоды, да, вот вы говорите, они...
It is a difficult question.
В экономическом плане, именно в плане йоги, то есть уровня развития.
There are a relevation of insider in the internet. In my opinion, it is called. It is supposed that one of the beekeepers describes his worldview. This is also the relevation of insider, the second part. It is curious, at least he says the following. To sum up, there is the concept of the harvest when they collect karma. For them to cause some problems is the normal, and that is they look at the reality because of certain reasons. There is the worldview of so-called beekeepers. It is one side of the scale. On the other hand, there are the writings. They say absolutely opposed things. If to weigh all this, it turns out that there is a law of karma, and my experience suggests that it really exists. So, there exist some people who try to collect karma and do not think about the consequences. How did they explain this? He says that they try to judge reality as multidimensional. Their theory is the following. In this dimension, we harvest problems with people. But they themselves are so evolutionarily developed that on the next plane of reality they will manage to remove from that karma so easy. Because it is in the other reality. So such a feature exists. That is, they believe in karma, but on the different plan. They have a very tricky vision to believe. People being fanatics can follow a certain philosophy, and to prove something is useless. Why do they do so? It is difficult to say. I just see the reality of how society develops, and I understand that there are certain people who do it. I know some specific people who run the media. I'll tell you a story. Once I had a friend. He was an executive editor on TV. The executive editor is the person who takes programs and prepares them for TV. The direction on one TV completely changed, and some Western trends came. It was the 1990s. This man said such a thing that they were now demanded to show. The man was still of Soviet norms. Someone's transmission about non-adequate people. For example, there is a singer singing completely retarded songs. This man says that he can't release this. It is contrary to all fiber of his soul to show this on TV. The high management makes him give it to the audience because this channel is created by a certain segment of the consumer, so to call by the viewer. Viewers are also segmented, so the special programs are prepared for such people, and they were forced to do it. In other words, they really created programs for non-adequate people. There is a German film on this topic, Free Reiner. The director of a super show has reached the state that he can no longer stand this stuff to produce, and he was expelled. He became a revolutionary. They began to change the broadcasting schedule, that is, began to manipulate the data and try to put some adequate programs on TV. The film raised the problem of television. The order is the semi side, and it is showed. What do you think, what is the worldview of people who do this order, knowing that the people who have the tendency to degradation due to these programs will be degraded? Now, в ВКонтакте there are movies which explains the work of the TV channel TNT. There is such a channel. In the commercials, ВКонтакте discusses the programs that this channel produces for the society. Just amazing things. What does it show to the younger generation? Because they have the order for this. There are such people who do it on purpose. They do not even think about the fact that they will receive this all. What you show on the screen now will come to you in your future lives. You'll degrade because someone gave this degradation, but they don't think about it. If you face some problems, then it's not because of some Smith or a bad person, but because you were once this bad person. And you did this to the people. And there is no contradiction. Yoga is a way back to your appropriate state of life. People that degrade don't need yoga. Yoga is necessary for those who are beginning to evolve. Therefore, the yogis ought to bear to some extent adequately limitations or hardship, inadequacy which happen to them. That is, you should to develop tolerance. Tolerance in case of kshatriya is very difficult. Kshatriyas cannot afford tolerance. They have a very simple logic: an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth.
Кшатрии не могут себе позволить терпимо. Они говорят, как это так? У них очень простой там логика: око за око, зуб за зуб и так далее. Поэтому про категорию кшатриев рассказывать вам вообще нет.
Yoga is an excellent tool for achieving specific goals. They use 100% of it. You do not need to tell them about yoga. They can tell you a lot because they do yoga seriously. Kshatriyas are not only those who carry weapons and who are on the justice guard. Now Kshatriyas are in the corporate wars. This is business, big business. They are the managers of large corporations who use yoga for achieving results. They do yoga for their business development. Here is a specific example. I have a friend in Moscow. He tries coming to yoga going on his Porsche. He leaves his Porsche away from the gym and goes on foot so that nobody thought that it is his. He comes so shy in order to be tortured during yoga practice. He practices 5 days a week, every evening after his workday, in the office. In the office he chases people, and in the evening he goes to yoga every day, in order being chased, because he feels that if he is chased, he can endure lawlessness happening in the office. Because being a manager is also not easy. They just want to be hanged because of their employees. Accordingly, when he does yoga, it increases his tolerance level. At least he survives. If you ever run a business, you know that at some period you can't go to this work. Your body refuses to go. You wake up in the morning, you are sick of this work. You can't see your team no longer. Therefore, managers are stimulated by money or a share in the business. According to the manager, what he likes, he is motivated by some sweeties. He doesn't like this carrot, okay, let's give him another one, a bigger one. Now Kshatriyas are the people who mostly fight economic area. There is Coca-Cola Corporation and there is Pepsi-Cola Corporation. What is the difference between them? If you look further down the chain, there are the shareholders. The shareholders have the banks. It's the same. In order to the managers to be competed with each other, you need to show the enemy. These are unfortunately people who start to do very much yoga, but most often this karma yoga is not the most trustworthy. So I always tell teachers honestly and sincerely, if you have people with assets and they want you to give an individual training, it's better to deny. Nothing good will be for you. Because there are such people with whom you have a personal training, and after this you get sick for a few days. That is, they have so much energy already, and they pull it, that it is better not to practice with them. If they want to do yoga, go to practice in the group. I don't give any personal practice for many years. I ask what contraindications do you have against the group practice? Why can't you come to a group and work out? Most often the problem is solved. What if there are some, for example, a person gives a doctor's certificate, for example, an old lady having some problems with her joints. Well, let's consider. Have you noticed that after you practice with this old lady with fragile joints, you feel that something is happening with you, very low efficiency? If you have a couple years of practicing yoga, how much will you have time to live and how much you will make depend on where to put your energy. To sell and trade your life energy for money is the most primitive way. If you want to live productively, it's better to spend your energy on those people who are capable of developing and further further capable of bearing knowledge. The ideal way is if you are going to train teachers, it is necessary to concentrate on this. Exchanging your life energy for money, believe me, this is the most primitive and stupid way. This is for narrow-minded people. Maybe not for money, but simply to help the person. He asks you to help. Maybe he really has problems. Okay, if you will change addition during your practice his worldview, if you explain what karma, reincarnation, austerity mean on this first lesson, this man should understand that his problem is karmic causality. Now you can treat him. There are a lot of examples, but as soon as a selfish man is healthy, he will more begin karma. Therefore, treating them is very dangerous. Remember the example I told about the manager who trains his office. He is very rich man according to the modern Russian standards, but very strong distortion, because in their society there is a proverb, with wolves to live, on wolves to howl, and it is the norm. They are not adequate because a man who makes regular decisions that cause someone suffering cannot be adequate. They are taking decisions constantly between bad and very bad. What to choose? What physical form did this man have? Nothing from the point of view of stretching, but he was puffing, sweating, making efforts. No development, because he cannot develop because of his cargo. He's got 2,000–3,000 employees, a big company, which he pulls. Moreover, he is still adequate. Those who are not adequate is very hard. Does he have any chances? What will happen to him? Do you mean to his development? All people are different. If that particular person... I don't understand how this business became his, because he is so purist, he should be all glamorous. If he does something, he should have everything perfect. He is a complex person, but nevertheless, somehow these great assets came to him in his life. What will be with him? It's difficult to say. Will he practice yoga? Now yoga helps him to survive. He does not degrade, at least. Every business has property. First it is growth, then stability, and then it falls apart. Perhaps sooner or later, and his business starts to collapse. Then he will start to evolve, because if you have a large staff that curse you every day... Do you know any boss who is loved in the office? которые вас проклинают каждый день. Ну, давайте как бы назвать вещи своими именами. Вы хоть одного начальника знаете, которого вы все любят? Который говорит, ой, там Сергей Петрович. What is being a leader? The leader is one who doesn't give the parasites to parasite in the office. So it is constantly forced to be in conflicts. Что такое руководитель? Руководитель это тот, each person will, in their own way. Perhaps this man about whom I spoke later will develop. At least now he's trying to support himself. What will happen then is unknown. If there is a person practice and at the same time I talk about karma, the law of cause and effect with a man, will it help him during his personal practice? Плечи закрепощены, там он борьбой занимался, вот, у него закрепощены. Я помогаю делать асаны. Я говорю, что вы там голову кого-то, ну, так, били. Да, говорит, ну, а мы, говорю, теперь вот испытываете, я говорю, ту боль, говорю, которую вы причиняли людям. Сейчас, говорю, вам приходится эту боль испытать. I don't know, it is always individual. If you have such a karma, then such man comes to you, so it is your karma. Get him away is the easiest way, but it is not the fact that it will be development. Maybe in your case you just need to pull this man, maybe. You should always have an individual approach. I tried to explain to you why I never work with these people individually. Because it is not effective for the development of the whole society. Maybe you do not clearly understand, but money has a karmic weight. People who have money, even if you pay you, no matter how much you will pay, you still will have difficulties. This is important for those people who do not have money. They tend to make money as soon as you cross the threshold, when you have all on the necessary for your life. Then you cease to appreciate money. You treat them very differently. If you teach yoga the first time, you will reject money because you will feel how hard it is on the energetic level. But I tell him about karma. Well, move on and perhaps he will evolve. Can practice help me to raise my energy later? If you sit there, so you are not so bad. If you even came to the seminar, can you imagine what a feat? Only few people reach until the summer. Usually teachers who start teaching in the autumn, they cannot teach already by the spring, so maybe in your case it is all good. So for teachers, it turns out there is a difference practicing in the group with people with negative karma or individually. Individually, it always heavier. Why? Does the teacher average? Does the energy do through him? No, I am saying just how it is. When a person comes to the group, then the total energy of the group averages the energy. There is no such concentration. When you have only one person, the teacher has a very strong focus only by this man. There is a very strong exchange, and it becomes very difficult for you. When there are 20 people in the room, the focus is not only on the teacher, it spreads out a bit and gets easier. In addition, if you have this group practicing regularly and for a long time, this group can be a support for you.
так немножко рассредотачивается, уже легче. Кроме того, если у вас группа занимается стабильно и давно,
you will always be held by this group, and such a group should always be, especially for the teacher. There must be some commercial groups where you can teach yoga and make money. But you also need to have the group, so to say, for the soul, where your friends or your students come who had done yoga with you, and then they had become teachers and therefore come to you as to an old friend to talk to. This is the best groups. Then it is better to invite such men to this group to make him mixed with them. I don't advise you to have a rich person who will come to you and you will get some material benefit. Rich people count every penny very often. They are so rich because they never spend waste. That is, they have stinginess, and they count every penny.
Лишние не потратят никогда. То есть у них скаберность, по-моему, называется, да? А? Ну да, что-то такое. То есть у них это даже не жадность, это считают каждую копейку.
Yesterday you said that Brahman comes only after being Kshatriya. If Kshatriyas did yoga not well, how can they become Brahman? In this life? Well, not in this life, of course, in the next one. Through some very complex dramatic experience, yes. They all get fiasco. Any kshatriya, any businessman who is fighting in the economic battles, I repeat that any businessman at first increases. At a certain stage, more evil predators come and feed it. This is the norm. There is no business of firm that would develop. Give you an example. Steve Jobs has organized Apple. Some steeper predators came and said him contradictions that he was forced to leave. He was watching for some years how his business gradually degrades.
Пришли более крутые хищники и его поставили такие условия, что он вынужден был оттуда уйти. Какое-то колесо лет лишь.
Any business develops and goes up and down, goes up and down. Every business is absorbed by younger predators. It is always so. So hope that it all goes well. It doesn't happen in life. This is against some laws of nature. So he will get problems. Just imagine the man made efforts all his life. He suffered for decades, sweated, dragging his managers. He was building some kind of empire, and once he loses everything. Can you imagine the feeling of this man? When you made so efforts, anger comes on those who robbed the business for many years ahead.
Вы можете себе представить переживание этого человека, это даже не ребенка потерять. Потому что если потерять ребенка, это там можно подумать о том, что я что-то новое создам. Ну, то есть рожу там кого-то там до некоторой степени.
You know, among the parties of the children of the rich people in Moscow,
Там приходит злость на тех, кто у него отнял бизнес, на десятки.
it is said that as much as their parents earned, they would never earn. They have no chance, and no mortgage. No auction will not be, nothing already will be. So they are very obedient, they do everything right, because they understand their place in the world. Accordingly, people who both live a certain business process, they always get the same thing in the end. He wouldn't take all this with him, and if it happens from life to life, it is always very dramatic and painful. We have not yet considered the question why a man is on the top of the business empire. What should he do in his past life in order to be in this situation in this life? He had to go through all the steps of his business empire, and finally,
Что он должен был делать в прошлой жизни, чтобы в этой жизни оказаться на этой вершине? Как вы думаете?
the star life begins. For example, he became a shareholder. That is not just the appointment manager, but the man who manages some assets. Just because it is a titanic work of his own Jivatma in his part. He saved and saved, built an empire, and finally he was given the director's chair, or the shareholder's chair. That is, he must know the whole spectrum, because the majority of new managers, what is their dream? They think how cool, for example, Petrov leads. He does nothing, he just stares at the ceiling. It is so only because they have no experience, but at some stage they will need to experience Petrov's way, so the experience was complete. That's when people give it up. You need to be sickened. The business itself is required for full satiation. When you are full, you understand that is not a solution. That's why they become Brahmans. He understands that it is not impossible to satisfy all passions. It is not possible to satisfy all desires as only possible. Do you have any ambitions? No problem. No matter how many ambitions you have, those will come who have more ambitions than you. Any leader sooner or later loses. Any leader. This is the world of impermanence. Did you understand everything about Kshatriya? They practice well. They do it easily, but most often it is misused what they do. It is much easier with Brahmans. Brahmans will not come to you. They often teach or practice themselves, and you will not see Brahmans in the gym. Therefore, to tell about them, most nothing. How do they get into yoga? From life to life, experience remains. If, for example, Shudras have some addiction to some primitive passions, Brahmans have addictions to learning, self-knowledge, austerities. They initially have this all. He's born, he's told something, but he thinks that something is not right. He needs to look for another. He tries to look for. The more potential the person has, the faster he finds an alternative point of view. Does he study with the help of books? Probably. Someone reads books, someone finds a teacher. Everyone has a different way. Teachers are required. Without teachers, you will not be able to develop. Why? Teachers are needed for two reasons. On the one hand, to get knowledge. The teacher is the person who, on his own experience, have experienced and tells you what really makes sense. Because if you just read the book, in one, it will be written to go to the right, in another, to go to the left. Your life is not enough to try all the options. So, there must be one who has the experience himself and knows and advises you adequately. This is the first option. The second option is teachers who, on their own negative experience, can show you how not to do. It is also very important. If you are going to evolve, such teachers are very important for you, because many teachers will show you how not to do. This is very important because they show you, you would do it all. Better to study on the other experience than to study in your own. That is why teachers are necessary. Not only teachers, but also people as the experience of other people. Of course, teachers may not be the only ones who teach you asanas. All the people around, they are to some external your teachers. Even the beekeepers that cause you some problems are your teachers. They show negative experience, but it is important.
Пора подводить итог. Последний вопрос еще у кого-то есть? У нас сегодня, значит, фильм будет какой-то развивающий про брахманов, или «Мой Бог», или «Пикей». В принципе, они дополняют друг друга. Ну, в общем, что-то одно.
Давайте Бог, вы так его разрекламировали, все ждут.
Хорошо. «Пикей» тоже не хуже, поверьте. Друзья, благодарю.